7. The mysteries of organic certification. We want to guide you through what natural and organic certification badges exist in the UK, the EU, and also globally. Today, we're going to be talking about the differences between the different awarding bodies, what those mean as a consumer, and quite frankly, the obvious giant confusion that there is for the public. There's a giant confusion as a brand owner, and whether in fact the certification bodies are actually weakening the call of the organic beauty market by causing a consumer to have no understanding of what is really going on and thus having no reason to trust anybody. Are the badges doing any good? Should brands have the badges? And what do we think for our current brand and our new brand, which is en route?
So Kirsty said in that introduction something quite interesting, which is, are they relevant? Like, to the consumer particularly, is a certification mark for a product being natural, organic, actually relevant, number one, and do they understand it, number two?
Yeah, and that's what we'd love to hear back from this podcast. That is our overriding message. Do you understand? There's every time we go to roundtable meetings, every time you put brand organic heads together, certification is always the topic of conversation. Yeah. And there was a huge meeting yesterday, Soil Association, where again, it became the topic of conversation. But I want to start with one really, really clear point. Clear soapbox, Kirsty. Natural and organic are not the same. And that is the first problem that you have in our market space. Now, when I am teaching our therapists, when I first go in, those of you who get the pleasure of being taught by Kirsty, I turn it into an art class always. And the first most important thing to know is what the difference is. If you really simply thought about two trees being drawn, one's on natural, pink trees always. One's on natural ground, one's on natural ground, one's on organic ground. They both grow, they both have ingredients. If you say, I'm going to grow an apple, okay? If you take the apple from the natural tree, that is a natural ingredient, clearly nice, good. However, the difference is that Farmer Giles here, who grows said natural apple, can, with his watering can, put on the soil whatever he likes. And you don't have always very clear control of that. It's fundamentally the difference with organic, where you have Mr. Farmer Potts over here. His watering can is very strictly controlled, which is why, and the downside with organic, he tends to get lower yields. But it's all about soil, which leads us very nicely to the UK badge, main badge, the Soil Association.
And the Soil Association came about based actually off agriculture and farming organic.
This is all DEFRA.
So my dad's been in farming for years, and it's been since 2007.
Those of you that don't know, Luke actually got a graduate job.
Yeah, with DEFRA.
He wanted to be James Bond. So he applied to the civil service, hoping to be in the diplomatic foreign office corps to be 007 himself. And he got offered a place at DEFRA. Not
quite what I was expecting, but it's always been something of interest to me. And Dad's always been in farming. And so organic farming is something that we discuss a lot. And the strength of organic farming is that there is an EU regulation I was mentioning earlier, which means that everyone in the EU has to farm to that standard. And therefore, they have to, in order to get the mark on their product that says they're organic, you know that you're getting the same quality across the board. And that is where the Soil Association, the association related to soil and producing organic food, as Kirsty was just pointing out, was born from. And they started in agriculture, but then realised that the cosmetic industry, although there isn't an EU regulation, which is why there is greenwashing and other issues which we try and overcome, took the mantle and said, we are going to have a logo and a mark for beauty. And Kirsty will tell you about that.
So, Soil Association, food originally, now they certify beauty products. Okay. Now, very, very distinct and clear point number two. Number one was that natural and organic are not the same. And number two is the fact that all of these badges are not equal.
That's right.
That is a very, very clear message from this podcast. These badges are not equal. We chose Soil Association for Pink's Boutique because A, we're British and it was the UK one.
And it was the highest one available.
But as Luke says, crucially, it is currently still globally the most difficult, I think, to get through. And so our logic was do it the hard way and everything else will be easier thereafter. In brief, Soil Association are a non-profit company. They ideally would get your bottle to be 100% organic. If you have 95% organic, you can call your bottle organic. If you have 70% or above, you can get the badge, but you can't put the word organic. And if you're under 70, you're not coming in. And the big thing is they exclude salt and water. So those of you who are Pink's Boutique users, those are the regulations that we are currently working to. But they are about to have a new badge, but that will come later. You have to keep listening to find out what's going to happen.
And the important thing about all these badges is that they do try and take into account similar things. So whether it be the minimum percentage of organic, whether you're allowed synthetic, how the ingredients are manufactured, how the product is manufactured, whether you're allowed water in the calculations, you're allowed it in the product with all of them, how they come and audit you. Obviously, animal testing, that isn't such a problem in the EU because it's banned outright. Whether the food has got, the ingredients are GM, whether they infect the environment or impact the environment. So there are these sections and these areas that they all try and cover.
They're almost like the chapters, aren't they?
Yeah.
They are the things they all deal with, but they deal with slightly differently.
But if we were to describe all of them for all of the different certification bodies,
you'd be really bored.
Yeah, and we'd be here forever. So as Kirsty's just done, she's sort of taken out the benchmarks which we can compare across them more easily with the different logos.
And what we're going to do, we're going to put some podcast notes together from this so that if you want to read each one more individually with the utter detail, it will all be there. And make some infographics as well so that you can see it quite visually and you can show it to friends or clients. So we've got Soil Association. We know that they're 70% and above, 95% have the badge.
The next up is the USDA organic certification. This is different in a couple of ways. Number one, it's
where's it from?
Government of the USDA, sorry, the US of A. It's the USA's organic mark, and it is a government standard. So they have implemented it, and
that is a difference.
Yeah,
that is one of the key differences.
I think makes it quite strong. It's the most similar Soil Association, but instead of having one mark, it has 100% organic mark, which obviously, as it says, everything has to be 100% organic. It has a USDA organic mark with a percentage, which, like the Soil Association, if it's above 70%, it then tells you, what that percentage is.
It has to tell you on the front of the bottle exactly made with X percent, which will be 70 or above.
Well, no, 95 or above.
Oh, yeah.
That's 95 or above. So a bit, again, like Soil Association, if you want to call the product, this is about the product title. So we have an organic toner because it's over 95%, and we have other products, but our moisturisers, for instance, have to say just organic and rosehip moisturiser.
Not organic. Ochre and rosehip moisturiser.
Exactly. See how confusing it is? And then they have anything that's 70% or above, they allow, but you're not allowed to show their mark. So you're registered, but you're not allowed to show the mark.
Why would you do that?
Well, I don't know. But so you can see, even though they're the most similar, you still struggle to compare them directly.
Yeah.
And that's the USDA, the US mark versus the Soil Association. But they are the most similar and similarly high in their standard.
Okay. So you've got UK, over the Atlantic to America. Coming back to mainland Europe, there's a few to come out of here. I am going to take Natrue as our next one. Now, Natrue, their most interesting difference for me is that they're one of the only certification badges that stipulates 75% or more of your individual products have to have gone through. Because one of the problems, and we see this a lot, there are some amazing brands that are organic, and they are organic, but then they will release, and they're normally shampoos, conditioners, body lotions,
Yeah.
hotel amenities. So a lot of the nice organic brands that then do hotel amenities because they need to be cheap, the organic certification badge disappears, but nobody says anything. And because you believe in that brand already, you think that they are all organic. Now, Natrue are on this, and they're basically saying you can't have it unless at least 3/4 of your range is stamped.
They are from Brussels, so they do like bureaucracy. But it's good. I mean, I agree with it.
Yeah. And this, they work on a starred system. Again, 3 levels, a 95%, a 70%, but they also have a natural badge, which the USDA and Soil Association, our first two, don't.
That's right.
They don't allow you to just be natural. Remember Farmer Jars and Farmer Pots?
Yeah.
They won't have any of it, other than your missing percentages. So remember that if you've got 70% in a Soil Association bottle, your other 30% has to be allowed natural ingredients.
And the other,
Is anyone confused yet?
exactly. And the other big thing with the first two, the Soil Association and the USDA Organic, is they do not allow water or salt in their calculations. So if you have your pot, which is made up of various things, the water content and the salt content can't be calculated, part of the calculation. So you can't, well, theoretically, you can't fill up 70% of your product with water and then call
And
it
then get the
organic,
badge.
and then get the badge.
And this changes when you get to the continent. This is the massive laissez-faire of the Francais. That's where it changes. The EU badges tend to suddenly allow water in.
Yeah.
And when I first began, I was always like, oh, that's a
Yeah.
real negative.
Truth be told, there are certain Soil Association products that, because the water is infused with an organic rose water or an organic aloe vera, it then becomes an organic ingredient in your product and does get counted. So again, we go back to how confusing it all is.
There are some cheats.
Yeah, I mean it is the way it is, but
And it's why when we
you've got to
start
start somewhere.
it's why when we start writing the brand ethos for brand number 2 for us, the fundamental base is truth, because I was done with the synthetic industry and the mainstream industry and all the brands we see on TV and magazines, because they just frankly lie, and got involved in organic and natural much, much better. But then the more you continue, started to even see cracks in it. And so,
And in their defence, in the certification body's defence, the cracks come back to the problem of there not being an EU standard.
yeah,
Because with that in agriculture, there's no fudging it. You know, they set the standard, you meet the standard, you get the badge.
and all farms are comparable,
Yeah.
because they're working under one.
Yeah. Whereas, because the cosmetic industry is having to find their own certification, it has led to inconsistency. So it's not a criticism of the individual
And
badges. It's just
each badge has people at the centre who are to the core dedicated
yeah, absolutely.
to what they're doing. Like, we've met a good handful of them, and they are truly dedicated, desperate people on a mission to try and fix it. But as always, it becomes political, and they believe in their own mission and their own mission statements, and they're slightly different to their competitor. And also remember, this becomes about money as well, in that whilst some of them are, like Soil Association, non-for-profit, some of them are not. So some of
Yeah.
them are making money as well. So it becomes an economic business stream as well. And it pays to be slightly different, and someone want your badge over someone else's badge. But for the consumer, God, wow.
Minefield. A minefield. Which brings us to our next certification, because we didn't feel we had enough, which is
Are we going to France?
the French body, which is EcoCert. Very popular.
It's probably the one you will see the most.
Yeah.
Why?
Why? Well, overall, they're predominantly more natural. So your formulations have to be 95% natural, but that includes water. So that gives you a great scope. And they allow 5% synthetic preservatives. So that allows you. Preservatives are something that are very difficult to do in a natural organic world. They are, usually have in historical terms been synthetic. They are the things that stop bacteria growing or stop, formulations falling apart. But obviously, in the pure organic sense, you shouldn't use them. EcoCert allow 5%. So they have two standards. They have the natural standard, which has to be 50% plant-based, i.e. natural ingredients, and 5% organic, but that's by weight. And then they have an organic standard, which is 95% plant-based and 10% organic.
So I'm curious, just to run me back through this. So currently of all of them, that's the easiest one to get because I can have more natural and more water.
Yeah, so as Kirsty was describing at the very beginning with Farmer Giles and Farming Pots, most of the ingredients are natural by nature, excuse the pun, of where they come from. And so you can have a natural version of apple, you can have a natural version of aloe vera. It's normally cheaper to produce, it's normally easier to produce, so therefore it's an option which is easier to access than the organic version.
So as the brand owner, your margin is possibly going to be better in this world as well. If you can select more naturals, they will as a rule be cheaper than the organic version. Not always, but...
And just to confuse it further, there are other natural things that aren't grown. So the other dichotomy is, for something to be organic, it has to be grown by nature. However, something natural could be rock salt, something that is naturally formed, a mineral, for instance, that you can't grow.
Very clear message 3 from this podcast. What were the other 2? Number 1 was that natural and organic are not the same. Number 2 was that all certifications are not equal. And number 3 is that some natural things cannot be organic. They can't be classed as organic, technically. Because if you just occurred by nature, sea salt, Himalayan mineral crystals, water are the best examples. There was no human intervention, there's no soil control, there's no human being cultivating, then you can't be organic. You're 100% natural, but not organic.
And arguably pure.
Yeah.
You know, can you be more pure than Himalayan rock salt? I'm not sure. Which brings us to the last one we're going to talk about is the German body, which is BDIH, and they don't factor in organic at all. They're about being 100% natural, and here it comes, or natural identical.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got a description of natural identical here, which I'm going to have to read because it's complicated, but it is a very interesting point. So obviously they're saying, the BDIH, that it has to be natural, 100%, but it could be a natural identical, which means nature identical substances may only be used when natural substances cannot be recovered from nature using reasonable technical effort. Nature identical ingredients are 100% identical in composition to their counterparts in nature, but have been created in the laboratory to ensure stability, safety, and sustainability.
Quote, unquote.
Quote, unquote. So that is a natural identical. And the point of that is obviously, if you can't in reasonable way extract that ingredient from nature, but you can produce it in the lab safely and it's exactly the same, their argument is it's still natural, but it's a natural identical. Note to self, Natru also allow a certain number of natural identicals.
And it also opens up the can of worms, which we're going to discuss in a few weeks' time in more detail. The debate of organic versus sustainable, but that's going to be saved for another podcast. Now, do I have a Cosmos badge?
Have we even explained what a Cosmos badge is?
But do I have a badge?
You probably, maybe.
It was Luke's job to print badges.
But you do. You have an EcoCert Cosmos Organic. Now, if it wasn't challenging before.
Okay. So at the very beginning, when we discussed that We Are Soil Association, I said that was about to have a change. Now, what is about to happen, and from the end of last year, any new product that we would have applied for a badge was going to have to now go through Cosmos and Soil Association. So Cosmos is a joint European effort to standardize all of what we have just been talking about. And when I first heard about this a few years ago, was really happy. However, as to whether it really will do it or not remains yet to be seen. And these were some of the debates yesterday. So what will happen if you are Soil Association, when we apply now, we will apply to Cosmos Soil Association as well. And we will either get a Cosmos Organic badge or a Cosmos Natural badge. We will get the organic one because we work to the organic standards. And And there's a bit of an argument arising currently, which we fully support, that those badges are too similar.
So rolling back to the beginning, we talked about Soil Association and USDA Organic, who are predominantly about organic certification. Natru sits somewhere in the middle, and then EcoCert and BDH are more natural. Now, these are all the bodies that have come together and tried to harmonise to create Cosmos. Obviously, the challenge being some are more swayed by organic, some are more swayed by natural. So as Kirsty described, they have a Cosmos Organic and a Cosmos Natural badge. However, the feeling in the organic camp is that they are not different looking enough that the consumer is going to be swayed either way, and therefore if they see one or the other, they will assume
they'll assume goodness, which, to be fair, they are both better than nothing. But when you farm to organic standards and you pay for organic standards, it's a little bit galling. And so that remains to be seen what happens, but that is kind of the current ongoing. Now, just to kind of draw this all together, I don't even have to ask people if they are confused. I know this one is a bit of a science lesson. There are multiple badges with multiple rules going on. Now, if you like moisturizer and you like lipstick and you like looking after yourself, can you really be bothered getting involved in all of this? Like, we can, because it's our job and we wanted to know about it and we work to those standards because we have a business with a definite ethical base. But if I want to get rid of these wrinkles and I walk into a salon, do I want to learn all of this?
And from my perspective, I always like to keep things simple. I think most people work in binary terms, is it or isn't it? So, is it natural? Is it organic? Is it synthetic? And so, if these awarding bodies, trying as they are to help out and sort of give a standard, are themselves different, for a consumer, what's the best thing to do? In my opinion, it's at least look for a badge.
Yeah.
There is greenwashing. There are people out there that are making themselves out to be natural who aren't going through any of these certification bodies. And so...
So when we make our infographics and the notes that we post up, basically have a good look at the badges, because genuinely all of them are better than going for something that doesn't have
And if
one.
you are a conscious consumer and you want to know that something is being thought about and the ingredients that go in it have been thought about, then you need a badge. I think that's the takeaway from me in terms of simplifying it. However, it's entirely up to you how far you go into it, and we will always be here to help, so please ask any questions.
This is a giant version, but just we launched and still have, and we want people to please let us know if you would like one. We ourselves have put together
You do get one in every retail order.
Yeah, we've put together a list of ingredients that, knowing that it is a mystery organic certification, that this exists, that we've put together like a simple list for people that you keep in your wallet, and those are the things that you look for when you're shopping and you avoid. Ideally, you look for the set badges that we've been talking about, and then you look for those lists. Yeah. The other thing is we always really encourage people, and we want our salons and our spas to take this further with their clients. Like, as soon as you've got someone encapsulated in this world, there is no turning back. It happened just this weekend with my cousin. I got her to download a couple of apps on her phone, and by Sunday she had texted me back going, "Oh wow, I genuinely now can't use X, Y, and Z."
It's an expensive game.
One of the badges, and we've quite frequently be talking to about with our salons, and it's because it's a simple binary process, and that's what we felt was missing, is we now are trying to get our salons to encourage people to download the Healthy Living app or Think Dirty. Yeah. They're both US and intriguingly both very consumer facing. They are much clearer to understand, and I think it probably comes from that American customer base.
As we said at the very beginning, between brands, it's a very friendly industry, the natural organic cosmetic industry.
Because we're living under this world, we're all trying to sort this out. It makes us friends. We're never nasty to each other.
Yeah, the long running discussion has been, is it clear to consumers? Do they care? Have we made it too complicated? How can we help them? And also, we are trying to raise standards. In America, the standards generally in terms of what is allowed, without certification are pretty low. It's
Awful.
considered, very low. In
The
Europe,
so the FDA, I mean, on last count had, I think it was 11 ingredients outlawed that can't be used, whereas in the EU you've got an equivalent
Thousands.
4,000.
So manufacturing
America
over there,
struggles.
so they have had to come up with a clearer way for consumers, or at least these charitable bodies have come up with a way.
And so one of the things we often discuss with our therapists is EWG. They created and now have the biggest global database.
63,800 last time I checked.
And you go into ewg.org and you can type in any ingredient from the bottle of a beauty bottle and it tells you what it is. And it ignores organic and natural to the level that we've just been talking about, and it takes it from a very distinct health level of, is this toxic to your body?
Yeah.
1, green, good, happy, to 10.
Yeah. So
Nasty.
Essentially, they're about clean, non-toxic, safe ingredients. That because of that lack of standard in America, they've put this database together with all these ingredients. They've got where they can. They've got data and research for each ingredient. They score each ingredient, as Kirsty said, from 1, which is good, green, to 10, red, which is bad. And it allows you to look at individual ingredients, which is very helpful because that can be confusing in itself. And they then also accredit total products. So, products that they look through the
Which is a new thing.
Which is a new thing for them, but
you can also type in brands. They have to be relatively well known, but you can type in X brand, X cleanser, and it will give you a badge score for the overall product as well, which is quite interesting. And something we really encourage our spas to do, to maybe hold like an event where you get people to bring back a bottle that they're used to using. Yeah. They sit with the database, go through, look at the numbers.
Or, as you'd expect, they have an app which has got a great scanning device on it. So essentially you scan the barcode in your product. And
it gives them the number, which more often than not is 5 to 10. Client goes, oh. And then we replace it. It's like a gun amnesty. It's like a bottle amnesty.
Nice.
with numbers. And so we are using our Soil Association badge and then using that as a support mechanism alongside.
Because we think it's clearer for the consumer.
Yeah, because it works in colours and it works in circles.
And it works in numbers. And it's about something a bit more tangible, which is it safe or not?
Yeah.
And that data, as I said, comes from independent studies on ingredients that they've researched and analysed. The other one to look out for is a Canadian version, which is Think Dirty, Shop Clean.
Which if you like brand...
Yeah, it's very well branded.
They're really well branded.
Yeah, they're really well branded. And they do a very similar thing, a database of ingredients, a database of products. Their database of products is bigger. I think their database of ingredients is not quite as big.
Because they actually sell products off the website.
Yeah, and so they are slightly more commercial than EWG, which is probably why they're so well branded. But they're still their mission statement is still very clear and very good. And again, you scan a product, assuming it's well known, it will come up with a score. If it's not, you can then enter the details in and they will score it in due course.
So, they definitely would advise a couple of apps. So Healthy Living, Think Dirty, so that you can start looking at scores. We've definitely advised taking the notes from the podcast and the infographics and learning the badges to look out for. Remembering that they're not all equal, but equivalently that they are all doing good. But crucially, the big question is, are they? Is by having so many, is this causing a problem to consumers who think, as we started at the very beginning with our 2 trees, they still think natural is the same as organic?
But despite that, as I said, my takeaway from this is one of these badges is definitely better than none of these badges. And greenwashing, I think, is the biggest threat, which is people making off and saying that they're natural and organic when they're not. So, for me, a badge is better than not.
As long as it's one of the recognised badges.
Obviously.
And so, what we've done in this podcast is we started with Soil Association, which is the logo that we a credit and put the Pink's Boutique products through. And we have taken the majors. There are others. We haven't done all of them. And we've just tried to take the key points and the key differences from each to prove, really frankly, that it is a slight mystery and it does need a lot of research and you have to be dedicated to it. And that is why, as a brand, we are trying to find things to make it easy for the consumer. Please let us know on any of our social media mediums, Facebook, Instagram, Pink's Boutique One,
Twitter,
or
at
literally
Pink's Boutique.
sending us an email. We will just free of charge send
Hello
you
at
out.
Pink's Boutique is the email.
We will just free of charge send you out one of our wallet cards that goes in, because that should be a really good starting help. And all of our therapists that are listening, I hope it has empowered you with even more knowledge, because when we do our teaching, we will talk just about soil association. And I frequently mention Cosmos is coming, but it is definitely coming. So you will start to see it appearing on new products and packs. And the $64 million question is, what will these ones end up with?
Unsanctioned.
What will the new products end up with? And I'm sure that is for another podcast.
Sure will be.
But thank you for joining us today.
It's been Kirsty and Luke from Pink's Boutique award-winning range of skincare for spas and for your salon. And we look forward to talking more and listening to your questions and responding to your questions.